Right, can everyone hear me? Loud enough. If you can't hear me, stick up your hand. No hands, that's a good sign. Well, welcome everybody. Good to see a nice full lecture hall. On to the session. We've got 30 minutes. I've got 16 slides, 2 slides a minute. We should be good. Driving new business through customer experience management online. There's my slide, my template. We can skip that along quite quickly and just talk a little bit about me. So I'm the managing director of NetConstruct. We're a long and well-established digital agency, a Kentico CMS Gold partner. I believe we were the first partner in the UK to gain a development and integration competency, and the first worldwide to gain an online marketing competency. And we build great websites. So there's just 5 that have won awards in the last 5 or 6 months or so, just to give you an idea of kind of where we're coming at. And we believe that a great website means more than just a good design. We can do that. We've won awards for designs and all that kind of stuff. But actually a great website, we believe, is a website that delivers real results against real business objectives. And really that's what you're all here to learn about today. So let's just move on a bit, get into the presentation, and let's kind of take a view on where the marketing landscape is possibly at today. Are there any marketing people in the room? A handful. Technical people in the room? Okay, hopefully you both get a bit out of this. Salespeople in the room? A handful. Okay, so we've got a predominantly marketing audience, and that's where I think marketing is at today. I think that there is this massive pressure on marketing people to actually deliver results. I think in years gone by, marketing was something that businesses had. They tolerated the marketing department. It was a bit of an expense. They got to play with all sorts of cool ideas and funky designs and pink and fluffy stuff. And you're a bit like the prima donnas of the organization. And suddenly, in the last few years, maybe it's driven by the recession, maybe it's driven by the industry growing up, you're suddenly expected to behave like business people and deliver results like other areas of the business. And not only that, there's this constant pressure and this constant conflict between the sales and the marketing team, where the sales team says, for goodness sake, can you please deliver us some more leads? You're not giving us the leads. If you could just give us the leads, we would convert them. And the marketing people, of course, saying, well, of course, we're doing the best we can, but it's the product and it's all those things that are making the difference. So you've got this difficulty of having to prove a return on investment. There's potentially shrinking budgets. There's new channels you've got to think about. You know, 3 or 4 years ago, how many of you were using YouTube? How many of you are using YouTube today? How many of you were using social 3 or 4 years ago? Today? Just about everybody. There's all these new things that are being added on, and you're expected to do more and more and cope with more and more things that are getting thrown at you. Bonus prize for anybody who knows the name of the painting? Anyone? Is there a mic around somewhere to... there's a handful. There's a lady here who knows.
It's Edvard Munch's The Scream.
That's it, The Scream. Do you sometimes feel like doing that? You're sitting in your office, everybody's at you, and you just want to sit back and just let it out and perhaps jump in the river afterwards. Well, hopefully not anymore. We have a solution to your problems. Right. So I want to tell you a bit about a scientific experiment that was done in the UK a few years ago. And it seems like my animations have disappeared, so you don't have the wonderful effect of my conclusion coming in at the end of my story. But over there we have a curtain ring and a light pool. Everyday objects that you get in your home, you can pick them up from B&Q or any other likewise provider for somewhere around £2.50, £3, maybe £20 if you shop at John Lewis. But you get the idea. Now, a psychologist went into a shopping centre and stood around and he said, we've invented these 2 objects. Could you put them in your hands and tell us how you feel? And he got a lot of really odd looks. People sort of went, yeah, nothing. So they ran the experiment again. And they said to people, we have created some objects to make you feel a bit unusual. Put them in your hand and tell us how you feel. And people went, oh yeah, it does feel a bit enlightening. This is a bit, yeah, it is making me feel a little bit tingly. Sort of a few comments like that. By and large, people just went, meh, no, don't feel anything. So then they did the same experiment again with the professor dressed up in a white lab coat, and they put these objects inside a really nice box, and they said, we have designed these new products to make you feel a bit unusual. Why don't you put them in your hands and tell us how you feel? Well, one guy reported that it made him feel completely high. How he knew that, I don't know. He'd obviously had experience before. Another person said, oh, they're like magnets drawing my hands together. Well, in the scientific world, they would call that hypnotic suggestion. I would like to call that marketing. And the conclusion is that the way that we package up our message and what we say about what we're trying to deliver matters. If we can package it up in the right way, we've got a good result. Now, I'm really hoping my next slide isn't going to screw up my animations, because it's going to ruin the picture for everybody. Oh, brilliant. We have over there a car salesman. And many of you would have dealt with a car salesman in the past. You walk onto the car showroom floor, and they're immediately checking you out. And they're deciding, A, whether you're a good prospect, whether you're likely to buy something, and what you're going to buy. So let's have some examples. So family walks in, nice happy family, kid over there, maybe the lady's pregnant. A fairly good guess, the person probably wants that car. So we're going to hone in and we're going to sell them that car. This chap walks in, anyone know who that is? Any recognition in the room? He's not chopping up people at this stage, just your typical yappy. What are we going to sell him? He's got loads of cash spare. One of them. It's really easy. This guy walks in. What are we going to sell him? Any ideas? A few nods. Yeah. One of these. So the message is that a human is easily able to identify, just at a glance, who is likely to want what. I was standing up front before the presentation. You were all filing in. You were all checking me out. You're making a judgment about me before I even opened my mouth. You'd already made some kind of a preconceived idea of who what I was going to be like. Maybe you thought that my presentation would be in a certain way. You may have found as I've gone on that maybe I was slightly wrong, and you would have had to have adapted what you think about me. Reality is a website can't do that. At least not a traditional type of website. The website is the website. It's how you set it up, and you can go to tremendous lengths to try and make sure that that website speaks to as wide a variety of your target audience as possible with the right message. But there are different messages for different people, and that's really difficult to deal with. Going back to the experiment with the light pool and the brass ring, people said that they would pay up to £25 for those £2.50 objects when the guy in the lab coat tried to sell it to them. That's the power of marketing. If you can get the messaging right, if you can identify what to say to a person at the right time in the right place, you've immediately added value. Anyway, I subscribe to Scott Adams's view on marketing. I'm a techie by background. I'm highly skeptical. I believe that generally marketing boils down to just brainwashing. And Scott Adams says that if you break down your potential customers, 20% of people are too poor to buy your product, 20% of people are too clever to buy your product, and the other 60% are called a target audience. So, let's start talking about some target audiences. This is a good chance for you to get involved with your sales team. This is the point at which we can start breaking down that barrier, that tension and angst that exists sometimes between these two teams in an organization. Who are you speaking to? What do they really look like? Loads of agencies work with personas today. Maybe you've worked with personas yourself. Who are the various customers? Well, I like personas a lot, but I think personas can be a little bit limiting. And you can end up with a scenario where every persona overlaps several other personas by about 80%. So I prefer to go down a different route, and it also helps me demonstrate my example, which I've helped to hopefully kept simple enough for everybody to follow along with. So, right, male and female. Obvious one. want to sell some products to boy people, some products to girl people. Maybe not so obvious one, age. I've split that down into boomers and Generation Xers. Those of you who are social psychologists amongst us will know what that means, but boomers are basically people born post-Second World War and the baby boom. Generation X is kind of me, and our catchphrase is whatever. Very different types of people. And then maybe you've got a product that is perhaps better suited to a rural mix or an urban mix. So what we've done now is we've created some different channels, if you like, or profiles of people that we can work towards, at least in our brains. It's time to get our hands dirty. Right, so there's your first introduction to Kentico CMS. It's the most exciting screen you've ever seen in your life. I made sure I captured the online marketing tab. It's absolutely brilliant. First thing we're going to do is start saying, okay, well, let's let the website start making some decisions when this person comes along. Let's let the website look with its eyes as that person comes onto the lot and start making some judgment calls about them. And that's generally going to be about their behavior. Now, we can't see what they're looking at, but we can tell what they're clicking on. And so what I've done with this one over here is I've created what's called a lead score in Kentico. So we're identifying how much of a boy is this person. I should probably say male. So we're going to configure some really simple things over here. I've assumed that we're selling clothes for some random reason. So if somebody visits the male clothing section, there's a good chance that they're a male. So we're going to give them 5 points towards their maleness. And likewise, we'll set up some other scores on the site. I just created 4 over here. I was using Argos as an example. So somebody who searches for an engagement ring on the site is very likely to be a male person. Somebody who visits the female clothing is likely to be a female. So we're going to subtract 5 points from that score. And we're trying to work out, on balance, is this person a boy person or a girl person? Visit the ladies' jewelry. Well, that's probably female, but it might not be. So we're not going to give it so much of a weighting. Great thing about this, you can configure this in any way you want. You can add as many rules as you want. You can make it as complex or as simple as you want. And it's brilliant. So once we've defined a whole lot of different segments, you'll see over here, I've got my baby boomer rule, my boy person rule, and my rural dweller. I couldn't think of a snazzy name to call them. Out of that, we now have 8 potential customer categories that we can market to. I'll show them to you. This is my brainwave based on a Myers-Briggs type of index, where you've got sort of various categories, and then you can give them names. So we have a rural boomer boy called RBB. Now, what's really great about that compared to personas is that with personas, you end up having to target very individually. With this, we've got a real mix of how we can start targeting different individuals as they go about the engagement process with your website. So we can target male and female, we can target age, we can target rural or urban, and we can do any combination of the above. And you can make it as complex or simple as you like, depending on how complex your target audience is. Right. So following on from that, I'm just going to group some of those together into the groupings that I've talked about. So here's a really simple macro engine. Any of you ever built some rules in your Outlook inbox to sort of shunt things around and do that? It's really easy. You just pull up this pop-up window and you say, I'm going to pull some people together. What's really important over here, you'll see on the top over there, I don't think you can read it that well, but I've started to use some definitive data about the customer in conjunction with these rules, these profiling rules that we're building up. So you might have a cracking hot CRM system, you're integrated it into this, it's feeding contact information into the back end of your database, and you can make a definitive call on, well, if the person's age is between, I don't know, what's a baby boomer, 65 to wherever, or if the person's age is between this and that, or if they've fallen into one of our profiling categories, we can categorize them up. So we end up with my 8 groups down there that I did before. Rural boomer boys, urban Gen X girls, the bottom one. It's all brilliant. So what do we do with that? So here's a look into the Kentico content tree. Those of you who've used the CMS will probably have seen something similar to this before. And on the homepage of our site, we have this wonderful featured product. I don't know whether that's a good deal or not. Depends on the exchange rate. But we might know that that's not the right type of product for any particular customer. So we might want to start personalizing what people are seeing. So we click on the personalize this element box, and we start putting some conditions in place. So in this one, I've said if this person is a rural boomer boy or a rural Gen X boy, we're going to display some slightly different content. How does that translate? Two different products side by side. Perhaps one's coming from a different category, perhaps one's at a different price point. The important thing about this is we've now personalized the experience on the homepage, targeted at specific individuals or groups of individuals, and we've not written a line of code so far. Everything has been built up by a marketing person without going into any kind of complex back-end stuff. I know they're called macro conditions, but there's a simple wizard that talks you through that. So let's turn it up a notch. What we're going to do is when somebody fills in a contact form on your site, perhaps they've been browsing about a bit, perhaps they've paid several visits, we're going to start talking with them and actually closing the loop down, much like a salesperson would do. Let's make the engagement two-way. So once they've filled in a contact form, we know what their email address is, we know a little bit more about them. So, here we go. We're going to set up a trigger in an automated marketing process. It's dead easy. Again, rules-based engine. So when somebody has established contact with us, if they're in that particular group and they submitted a contact form, we're going to start something off. What does that look like? We drag a few boxes onto a screen. We're going to wait 7 days. And if they haven't made a product purchase by that point, we're going to send them an email. And in this case, we're going to carry on doing that until they buy something. Let's annoy the hell out of them. Let's just pressurize them into buying something. You can do that if you like. You can change the message of that email every week. It's just a template that you can use. You can apply it. You can set all of this up yourselves. No coding required. No agency required. I've just taught myself out of a job. Or we could get even more complicated. This took me about 5 or 6 minutes to pull together, just as a process. So again, the same thing. We're going to wait 7 days. If the person's made a purchase, hasn't made a purchase, we're going to send them an email. Maybe after another 7 days, they still haven't purchased. Well, why don't we send them a discount code? They still haven't purchased. Well, at that stage, we'll give up. This person's probably never going to buy. But hopefully you get the gist of what we can start doing with all of this. Right, so some of you will be interested in measuring some results on the back end of this, proving some ROI. What are some of the other things we can do? Tracking campaigns. It's brilliant. Set up a campaign. Somebody arrives at a landing page. We know that they're associated with that campaign. Let's track some conversions and correlate those to the campaigns. That's brilliant, but you've seen all of that before. Google Analytics does that. What Google Analytics can't do is tell you about individuals. Because here we can start saying, this person responded to this campaign in this way, perhaps went through this conversion point, and we know it was that person, and we know their history. Very powerful. You've kind of got, I've put CRM in brackets there, because it's not really a CRM system driving this, but we have huge amount of data about anybody who is browsing your site. We know anything they've done, any place, any time, and as they start adding information about themselves through their engagement with you, you're building up an ongoing profile that can be really effective. And you can capture return on investment. Let me just give you an example from something that we did ourselves back in October. We sent out a marketing campaign using Kentico's flagship product, a good old-fashioned email marketing campaign to a number of contact databases that we've built up over the years. And the ultimate conversion point for that was a white paper. People could download a white paper and learn more about a particular topic. We know exactly how much that campaign cost us to put together. There was some design elements involved, there was some database purchasing involved, there was some third-party involvement in that process. We put those figures into the back end of the CMS system, we sent the campaign out, we got a certain conversion rate, and we can report back exactly what the cost of acquisition of a lead was to the business. Wow, marketing people, brilliant, you should all be cheering right now. No cheers? Sad. So what have we achieved? You can score customers against criteria appropriate to your organization. Profile customers into complex profiles. Personalize content for your customers. Create an online dialogue with people who are engaging with your website through some marketing automation. And we've created a framework for accurately measuring results for individuals and groups. It's all brilliant. Final end result, lots of happy people. Customers, salespeople, marketing people. I'm not saying you can go off and spend the day on the beach, but ultimately a sales process is complex. It involves many touch points, only one of which may be the website. That may be at the start of the selling process, it may be at the end of the selling process, it might be midway through the selling process. You might have a number of different types of customers that you're speaking to, and the challenge in the years moving forward for marketers is going to be finding a way of addressing the customer in the right way, at the right point in the sales process, with the right message. That's me done.